Well, welcome back to H360 Health Talk. We're here wrapping up with our conversation with Meg McQuarrie of the Elixir Fund. Meg, thanks so much for joining us. You know, a lot of cancer patients that are friends of mine or that are in the Healthy H360 network say, you know, I get a clear, I go through the cancer journey and I get a clean scan or a clean reading, but 24/7 it's always in the back of my mind, you know, is this going to come back? How do you deal with that?
It's not easy, and I think that's the purpose of that's the goal of our programs, is to give people some tools. It's hard to really educate somebody and say you need to take a break. I can tell you that all day long, but your brain isn't necessarily going to turn off, and that's a training. So being able to give people access to the programs that are helpful and supportive, meditation, yoga. It might just be going for a walk. It might be watch a funny movie with your family, but helping to provide access to those tools and to encourage people to utilize them and take that break.
So I could see somebody, you, coming to Kevin and saying, okay, time out, we're going to take a break from cancer. But then who turns to you and say, okay, Meg, you're going to take a break from cancer, because you're right there with him. You're going through the journey as a sibling, as a caregiver. Your spiritual and emotional is got to be running on overtime. So does the Elixir Fund also recognize that in the caregiver community and say, you know, you have to be strong, and if you get sick, you can't be strong to care for your loved one? How does that work with the Elixir Fund?
Everything that we do is designed with the patient and the caregiver in mind.
So it's an and, not an or.
It's an and, not an or. Absolutely. All of our programs fit for both, and we do try and access both the patients and the caregivers, because it usually is a team. And when you go through something like this, there's the person in treatment, and they usually have that one go-to person. And together, they're a unit. And oftentimes, you don't even need to speak anymore. The communication is just understood. And that's a lot of pressure on both parties. It's hard to let other people in to help when you've got it dialed down and you know how things work. Yeah. It's just easier to work through. So we try to access both the patients and the caregivers and give them the tools. It's so important to be able to take a break. And for me, Kevin was just as much a part of that. It was very important to him that, again, because we were siblings, it was very important to him that it not overtake my life as well. And that's the time that I discovered yoga, because it was very easily accessible. I could literally walk across the street and take an hour yoga class. So it was really important to take that break so that I could keep being there as the support for him.
So give me an example. So if I'm a caregiver and I happen to do a search on the internet and I reach out and I phone you and I say that I'm caregiving for a parent or a sibling or spouse, what's the first step in the process? Is there a form that they fill out? Do you call them back? Do they leave a message?
There's no form. Usually I get an email or I get a phone call, and so I respond in kind and I talk to them about what it is that they're looking for and the kind of support that they're trying to access. I'm certified as a lay patient navigator, so I act like a patient navigator in helping people to identify resources and support in their local communities. And added to that, one of our premier programs that we are looking to relaunch in by the end of 2019, this year, is our online support registry, the Elixir Fund registry. So we also have a program where patients and caregivers can create a list of their needs, meals, transportation, housekeeping, whatever it is. And we look for businesses that provide those needs, and a patient, a caregiver can create a registry like they would a bridal or gift registry.
Yeah.
And share that with their family and friends, or make it public for the community to help. And when a purchase is made, the registrant receives a gift certificate in email that's redeemable at that business. So we really are hoping that this provides an easy way to share those support needs and to ask for that help.
So how do you raise money for the Elixir Fund, or how do you raise? Do you find local merchants who believe in the cause and say, you know what, this is what I do and this is how I can help? How do you go about getting those donations or those companies to support you?
We are pretty much donor supported, so fundraisers. We have people that run races for us, triathlons, marathons, local fundraisers. So it's a lot of donor support. And then in terms of the registry, in terms of the businesses on the registry, we're actually looking for businesses to use our registry as another avenue for selling their gift certificates. So it's not so much a donation because we want a long-term relationship.
Sure.
Right. So businesses can only donate so much a year, and we're looking more to make a network, more to make it easier for patients and caregivers to ask for the exact support they need and to access that support.
I also imagine that it solves a big problem that I see is that people really don't know how to talk to patients with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
They're nervous about it. They don't want to say the wrong thing. They're not sure if they're going to, offend somebody. So I think it makes it easier for that patient to say, hey, these are some of the things that I could use help with.
Exactly.
And just make it easy for other people, their loved ones, their friends, to go and look at that registry, make some decisions. Now, if somebody goes to the registry and buys a gift certificate or buys a service, or maybe it's an in-home massage, whatever it is it done anonymously, or does somebody know, will I know that it's, my friend in Chicago that's sending this to me?
Currently, it's done anonymously. That's the next iteration, is we'd like to give you the option whether you want it to be anonymous or not. So currently it's anonymously.
Sure. Do you get a lot of people coming to the Elixir Fund who may be a cancer survivor and saying, I want to give back, and the way I can do that is to donate to the Elixir Fund so that these people who are in need of having things on the registry can take advantage of that?
We definitely do. Actually, we have people, and in fact, we're working with someone that benefited from the registry herself. And she was so grateful for the support that she received. And again, at that point, all of those donations were anonymous and helped provide her family with some home meal delivery service. And she was so grateful, and the impact that it had on her, just receiving a few $100s in support for food, was tremendous. And so she's committed to participating and using the registry and sharing that with others.
So do you have advocates around the country for the Elixir Fund that will organize a 5K or a fun walk or some charitable event?
We do have friends and supporters who have organized fundraising events, vendor parties for the holidays, holiday open house, 5Ks, races. Mm-hmm. So
as the holiday season will be upon us, moving into Thanksgiving and then the Christmas and New Year holiday, it's really, I think, important. People tend to get more lonely, more kind of withdrawn. They may be hospitalized. They can't be with family or friends, or they don't feel comfortable. How do you, as you called yourself a certified patient navigator? Mm-hmm. How do you seek certain times of the year where your workload gets heavier, or the kinds of things or advice as a patient support navigator increases?
It's pretty universal. I mean, it's pretty much consistent throughout the year because people are going through treatment throughout the year. I think that's one of the things around the holiday time. We ourselves get busy in our everyday lives, so it's harder to remember that we may have a friend or family member who's going through treatment because our own lives get so busy. And that also happens throughout the year. You'll get an initial influx in support at the beginning of a diagnosis, but as it goes on, or if you're someone who has a long-term care need, or if your illness becomes more chronic, that's a little more difficult to ignite that support network and keep them going.
So you mentioned kind of the next iteration of the site will allow you to leave a comment or be mm-hmm. anonymous. what, as you look at I know as a small organization, you really kind of have to focus, and you can't boil the ocean, so to speak,
Right.
so you kind of have to pick and choose. So what's on the roadmap for development once you get past, the anonymous or leaving comment functionality?
We're looking at a local launch and then a broader expansion. We'd like this to be an answer for people nationwide as a way to empower their support network. We're also looking at larger connections with larger businesses so we can meet some of those greater support needs, grocery gift cards. Transportation, as you know, is a big one.
Yeah.
That's a huge issue with patients. So we're looking to expand to larger corporation connections so that we can provide some of those needs.
Yeah, the Amazons, the Walmarts that
Right.
are not only in bigger areas but also in rural America,
Exactly.
where these patients have a difficult time finding services, and a lot of patients, and depending on the cancer, a person might have to travel quite a distance and kind of establish almost a second residence
Right.
in the city. Some of these rare cancers are only treated in 2 or 3 different locations in the country. And if you're miles and miles away from that, you're kind of uprooting or leaving some of the family that, at home, and you're going and establishing. So the Elixir Fund, I would think, would be a great service to those who are kind of in that mode.
Exactly. If you have to travel, or even just your regular trips to the doctor or to the treatment center, that adds up. All of these things add up. And to get that financial support is getting more and more difficult. We know that friends and family want to help. We know the community at large wants to help. We just want to connect them to help in a way that is best for the patient and caregiver. People are going to help,
Yeah.
but will it be helpful to the person who is in need? And we want to make sure that they can easily ask for those things. But you're right, it is making those connections, and especially if you have to travel, all of these things add up. And there's not a lot of support. There's support based on financial need, which is wonderful, but for those who are in this long term or even short term, this can be expensive. And so to try and provide some of those resources to keep somebody from really losing financially because of a treatment schedule.
So the website again is
elixirfund.org.
elixirfund.org.
And I should say too that this registry that we're developing, as we started sharing it with other people, the need is greater than just those who are impacted by cancer. So we've really broadened this to anyone that might have a care need. So maybe you have another long-term illness, maybe you're having surgery and you just need a little help. So any short or long-term care need.
Now, do you have a calendar on your website that will show where some of the physical fundraisers are occurring?
We do. We have our events listed on our website as well.
And if somebody is watching this and they say, what a great idea, I'm looking for something in my community to give back, how would they go about establishing maybe a sub-branch of the Elixir Fund if they could for their area?
Well, they can contact me and we'll work with them to see how they can work with us because we need to get the word out and we want to make those connections. So we would love to talk to them about working in their local community.
It's all about getting the word out and doing great things.
Yes, very much.
Well, Meg, thank you so much for stopping in. You're doing great work. I really admire what you're doing, and the story behind it really touches my heart. So I hope you keep us in mind and let us know when you have a fundraiser in this area, because Healthy H360 will be out there in full force to support it.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me here.
Thank you.